everyone, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to another video. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Kristi. I'm currently following the WW program, but I do provide calories as well. And with that being said, you don't even need to be on any type of weight loss program to get tips and ideas from my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you 3 very easy fall soups. So let's head over and I'll show you how easy these are. For this recipe, we're going to be making minestrone soup, and honestly, I had to throw a recipe together for this because for minestrone soup, I have just always kind of just thrown different things in there. So you can make this right from scratch, or you can do like I'm doing where I'm using some frozen vegetables. This is so versatile. So for this recipe, it does have pasta in it, and I am going to be adding some ground turkey breast to mine. So a lot of times with minestrone soup, it doesn't have meat in it, but you definitely can make it your own and you can add meat. I have seen people add bacon or just ground beef, whatever you want. This is a little bit similar to pasta fagioli soup. The only difference is it's really more about the pasta and beans with the fagioli soup, whereas minestrone, it's kind of more about the vegetables, and it's more, it's not as thick, I would say, as fagioli. With that being said though, everybody makes them different. So for this recipe, let me show you what we're gonna need. First of all, over here on my stove, I am gonna add some zucchini to mine. I have zucchini and a small onion. This is about a half a zucchini and just 1 small onion. So I just sprayed my pan with some cooking spray, and I'm just letting those cook up a little bit, and then I'm gonna add my turkey breast to that. So this is the 99% lean ground turkey breast. So if your chicken breast and turkey breast is 0, this is the one that is 0 points. So we're just going to take a pound of that and dump it right in with the onions and zucchini. While that cooks up, I'm going to go through the rest of the items with you. In here I have 3/4 of a cup of small shells, and I'm just using these Great Value small shells. And the reason you see them sitting on my scale is because I weighed them out. So we want 3/4 of a cup, but because they're pasta shells, it's easy to go over with your points. So I weigh them out. I just look at the serving size, and on the box it says half a cup is 56 grams dry. So I need 3/4 of a cup. So I just put 84 grams of noodles in there. We also need 1 can of white beans, rinsed and drained. I've already rinsed and drained them, and I just put them back in here. I just didn't want them sitting in my strainer, getting water all over my counter. We're also going to need 28 ounces of crushed tomatoes. And then I'm just going to be using some frozen California style mixed vegetables, but you can definitely put fresh vegetables in there. You can use anything. You can use green beans, you can use celery, carrots. I actually was going to put some celery in there, but I didn't have any. This has broccoli, cauliflower, and carrots in it, so whatever vegetables you want to use, you can use. We're also going to need 2 cups of vegetable broth. Over here on this knife, I have 1 garlic clove that I'm going to actually add to my pan with the meat, onion, and zucchini, but I'm going to wait until those are almost done because I only want to cook this for about 30 seconds. And then the last thing I have here is some pesto. This is just rustic basil pesto. You can definitely make your own pesto if you want. So this is not factored into the points and calories because I'm just adding this at the end. Once I dish it out into my bowl, I'll put about a teaspoon of pesto in there. It just gives it some added flavor. So I'm just going to keep an eye on my vegetables and my turkey. I'm going to add a little bit of salt and pepper. Now to a big pot, I'm going to add the tomatoes, the vegetable broth, and the beans. So I need about 2 cups. This container has 4 cups in it, so I'm going to use about half of it. But you can eyeball that. If you want to use a little bit more or a little bit less, you can do that. And then the beans. So now I'm just going to cover those and bring those to a boil. So one good thing with cooking with zucchini when you're using fat-free meat, you don't have to add any oil. A lot of times with fat-free meat, because it's so fat-free, it tends to stick to the pan, so you usually have to add just a little bit of olive oil or something. But when you're cooking with zucchini, as you can see, the zucchini lets off quite a bit of water, so that's really good. It soaks right into the turkey. So this is almost done, so now I'm going to add my clove of garlic and just give that a stir. And then I'm going to turn my heat down so that it doesn't cook anymore. So now this has come to a boil. I'm just going to stir it up a little bit, and I'm going to add my pasta. So now I'm just going to let that cook for about 7 minutes, and make sure to keep stirring every so often so that the pasta doesn't stick to the bottom. All right, I've only had this going for about 4 minutes, and that pasta is cooking really quick. So I am going to go ahead and add in my frozen vegetables now and the meat. All right, my camera stopped, and I don't know if you caught me adding everything. So all I was doing was adding in the vegetable mix and the turkey mix. So I'm turning my stovetop down to probably about 2. I'm just going to let it simmer now and just let it cook until everything is nice and cooked through and tender. And as you can see, it's actually pretty thick. So I said usually minestrone soup doesn't come out as thick, but I was thinking I don't usually put the meat in it. I usually have minestrone soup without the meat, so that's probably why it's a lot thicker. So you definitely could add some more broth if you wanted. All right, that has been simmering and it is done, and it looks so good. So let me get that dished up and show you what it looks like. Okay, that is what it looks like. You probably can't really tell from this, like the size of this bowl, but this is a pretty decent size. It makes about 6 1.5 cup servings. So now I'm just gonna take my pesto, and I'm gonna add just about a teaspoon of pesto to the top. For the points and calories, for me, I count my beans, but I don't count my turkey breast. So my turkey breast is 0, but I do have to count my beans. For me, it's 5 points, and if you're counting calories, it's 272 calories. So I will have the recipe listed down below, and I'll also have a link so that you can go straight to your WW app and see what the points are for you. So one thing to keep in mind, you did see me putting salt and pepper on the meat, but not actually in the soup. That's because the tomatoes that I used were not no salt tomatoes. So a lot of times when I use canned items, I don't add salt to it just because there's already a lot of salt in them. But if you're one who uses the no salt cans, you may want to add some spices to it. So this is something, like I said, it's really versatile. You just kind of have to make it your own. So taste it, add different flavors that you want. So this is the minestrone soup. Okay, this soup recipe is a taco soup recipe. I'm sure many of you have heard of taco soup. There are so many different variations of taco soup out there. Now, the good thing with taco soup is you can make it with whatever protein you want. In fact, if you don't even want to use a meat, you can definitely do it without meat. Just maybe put some extra beans or something. Normally when I do this, I like to do it just like regular tacos. So I usually use the 96% extra lean ground beef. And that's what I actually planned on doing for this recipe, because the next soup recipe that I'm making is actually made with chicken. So I kind of wanted to have different proteins, but I am all out of ground beef. So I'm going to be making it with chicken breast. So for the points and calories, depending what you count, for me, my chicken breast is 0, but I do count beans and corn. So for me, this is coming out to 4 points. If I used the extra lean ground beef, then it would come out to 6. Calories is 285 if you're using the chicken breast, and about 298 if you're using the 96% extra lean ground beef. So for this recipe, what we need is 1 medium onion. These onions are fairly small, so I'm going to use 2. And then I also have 2 cloves of garlic. You can definitely just use maybe like a half a teaspoon of garlic powder if you prefer. A can of corn, a can of black beans, a can of pinto beans, and then also a can of Rotel tomatoes. It doesn't have to be the Rotel brand. I just call them that. They're just basically diced tomatoes with green chilies. And then I sometimes add in some tomato sauce. I really base this on the consistency at the end, so I actually don't add that quite yet. The other things we're gonna need: a packet of taco seasoning. I prefer to use my own taco seasoning, but I keep forgetting to make some more, so I'm just gonna use this low sodium taco seasoning mix. So if you're using homemade taco seasoning, the points may be maybe a point less, so just make sure to put everything in your own tracker. Over here, I have about a pound of chicken breast. This is boneless, skinless chicken breast that I get from Sam's Club. It comes in this great big 6-pound bag. And then finally, the last thing I need is 2 cups of chicken broth. So I'm using some chicken bone broth that I took out of my freezer. I actually make my own broth. I put a video, I'll link a video down below if you want to see how I make my own broth. And then what I do is I use these super cubes, and they're just silicone super cubes. I freeze it in that, and then I take them out and just vacuum seal each individual cup. So I know these are each a cup. So I'm letting that kind of thaw out, but it doesn't need to be thawed. I'm going to be making this recipe in the slow cooker. So you can make it in the slow cooker, you can make it on your stove, you can actually even make it in the Instant Pot. We don't need these. I actually had these sitting next to me and I grabbed them thinking it was for this recipe. So it's the Rotel we need. So I'll have the recipes linked down below, and then when you get to my website for the recipe, if you're following WW, there will be a link so you can go to WW and figure out your own points. So now what I'm going to do, I've got a little strainer here. I'm going to take my corn, my black beans, and my pinto beans, and I'm going to put those in the strainer, drain them, and rinse them real well. And then I'm also going to mince up my onion and my garlic. Now I'm going to take the insert to my Instant Pot, and if you're using a slow cooker, just use your slow cooker insert, or if you're cooking this on the stove, however you're doing it. My Instant Pot actually has a slow cook function, so that's what I'm using here. So I've sprayed it with some cooking spray, and now all we're gonna do is just dump everything right in there. So here I have my corn, my pinto beans, and my black beans. I rinsed those and washed them real well. Next, I'm gonna add the diced tomatoes and green chilies, the packet of taco seasoning mix. And like I said, that tomato sauce, I'm gonna wait until the end. Then I'm gonna add the garlic and onion. And then I'm gonna stir that around. And then I'm gonna take my chicken broth and just put that in there. And that's okay that it's frozen, because once it melts, it's just gonna be like regular broth anyway. And the last thing I'm going to do is take my chicken. Like I said, my chicken is still actually kind of frozen too, and that's perfectly fine. It's going to cook right in there. I'm just going to try and get some of the beans over the top of it though, just kind of so it's nestled down in there just a little bit. All right, so that's all that goes in there. So let's get this started. I'm going to put my lid on. Now I'm going to hit slow cook. And I'm going to cook it on low for 4 hours. So I'll come back and show you what it looks like. All right, this should be done. So now you can either pull that chicken out and shred it, or just kind of break it apart right in here. So sometimes I will pull it out and put it in a bowl and use my electric beaters on it and shred it up that way. But it's really tender, so I'm just gonna break it into pieces. Sometimes I don't like it real shredded. I like to just kind of break the pieces up. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. All right, that's what it looks like in the bowl. So this one makes about 1.5 cup servings. And then I just load it up with all my things that I love in taco soup. So here I have some avocado. I've actually weighed out 35 grams of avocado. Avocado is 1 point for me. So I just do a point of avocado. Over here I have just a little bit of reduced fat cheese. I'll stir that in. And then I have some green onion and also some sour cream. I have 1 point worth of sour cream there. So that is the taco soup. This is one of my absolute favorites. All right, next up, honestly, is a soup that does not take but maybe 15 minutes. This is so easy to make. This one is Hearty vegetable chicken soup. So there are no noodles in this one. It's not like a chicken noodle soup, but you definitely could add some noodles to it if you wanted. So for this one, for me, it comes out to 2 points per serving. This makes enough for 6 servings. My chicken is 0, but my corn, I do count. My corn is not 0. And for the calories on this, it's about 175 calories per serving. So this one is so incredibly easy. The only thing I didn't have for this one is celery. I do like to put celery, but the vegetables you put in this are completely up to you. So in this pan that I'm going to be cooking this one on the stove, in this pan I have just some diced carrots in there. I have about 2 cloves of garlic, but again, you can just use some garlic powder if you prefer. And then the other things we're going to need for this, I have some green beans. This is just a 12-ounce bag of frozen green beans. Dump those right in there. Next, we want some frozen corn. We need about 2 cups. So I'm just going to put this whole thing in there. It's 12 ounces. Next, we want a can of petite diced tomatoes. So that's what I needed that for. Also, we need a little bit of Italian seasoning. I'm going to do about a half a teaspoon. We're also going to need about 6 cups of chicken broth. And again, this is the chicken stock that I make. It's just these ones I froze in mason jars. So these are 8-ounce mason jars. So I have 6 of those that I'm going to just dump in there. They are not quite thawed out, but that's okay. They're going to finish thawing out on the stove. And then finally, we're going to need about a pound of chicken breast. I have actually a little bit over a pound. Since chicken breast is 0 for me, I don't have to be exact, but if you count your chicken, make sure to count it. This is already cooked, so we're going to add this at the end. What I do to cook this is just the chicken breast tenderloins that I get from Aldi, the frozen kind. And I've mentioned this before on my channel. I take those frozen chicken tenderloins, I put them in my Instant Pot with about a cup of water or broth. You can use broth if you want. I usually put a little bit of seasoning in there of some kind. I use chicken seasoning or whatever. And then I just pressure cook it on high for 9 minutes, let it naturally release for 6, and then do a quick release on it. And it's done, and it's so good. And you can either cube it or you can shred it up at this point. It's so tender, it shreds up real nice if you want to shred it. That is honestly my favorite way to do chicken now. So that's going to get set aside for now. We're just going to add that once the soup is cooked. We're just going to add that at the end. Over here I have my burner on medium high. My broth is melting pretty well now. So all I'm going to do is just bring this up to a boil on medium high. Once it comes to a boil, I'm going to lower the heat to low. I'm going to cover it and just let it simmer for about 5 minutes. And then the last step is just to add that chicken and cook until the chicken is cooked through. And that is how easy this soup is. All right, so as you can see, that is boiling really good. So now I've got my heat turned down to low. I'm going to cover it, let it simmer for 5 minutes, and then I'm just going to add the chicken. All right, that's been simmering for about 5 minutes. So now I'm going to add in the chicken. And if you want, you could cut the chicken into smaller pieces too. Or you could even shred it, to be honest. You could shred it all. But I like to have it in chunks like that. So that's it. I'm just going to let the chicken heat through. It just takes a couple minutes. And then I will get that dished out into a bowl. The last thing I'm going to do is just add a little bit of lemon juice before I put it into my bowl. I do like to add this just because sometimes the vegetable soup can be a little bit bland. So depending what spices you ended up putting in, I will add some black pepper once I have it in my bowl. But I do like just adding a couple splashes of this in the soup as well. So there is the vegetable chicken soup. I'm trying not to get too close because it's fogging up my camera. So this one is a true regular soup. Like this one is very water-based. This isn't a cream-based soup. So it's very just like a regular vegetable soup would be. So you could do some crackers with these or whatever you want. Like I said, this one makes enough for 6, and the serving size on this is about 1.5 cups, probably between 1.5 and 1 3/4 cups. The best thing about this, you can just kind of season it the way that you want. Once it's done, just taste it, taste the flavor of it, and see what spices you want to add to it. You can do so many different things with this. Add different vegetables, whatever you want. Different vegetables, different spices. Just kind of play around with it. One thing I like to add to mine is some black pepper. And then just stir that in there. But just add whatever spices you want. Okay, bonus soup time. So I planned on only doing 3 soups, but I am going to give you a 4th one because this one literally takes about 5 minutes to throw together. It's similar to that last one I did. It's so quick, but honestly, this one's even quicker. So this one is called spiced pumpkin soup. And this is kind of one of the ones that you either love it or hate it. If you are a pumpkin lover, you're probably gonna like this one. I love this with some sour cream just kind of drizzled in it. I also like to put a little bit of cilantro over the top of mine. Of course, we know there's a lot of controversy about cilantro. My husband doesn't like it. I love it. So for this one, I'm actually using vegetable broth on this one. I'm not putting any meat in here. This one is a 0-point soup for me. This is all that's in it. What you see here is all that goes in it. So it's 0 points. And I think for calories, it's like 58 calories for a serving, something like that. This is gonna make 4 servings. So what we're gonna need is about 3 cups of vegetable broth. And then what I have in here is 1 teaspoon of ground cumin, a half a teaspoon of chili powder, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, and then just a pinch of red pepper flakes, and that's what gives it that spice. So if you want to leave that out, you definitely could. And then the other thing we need is a can of pumpkin. Make sure it's pure pumpkin and not the pumpkin pie filling. That's all that goes in this. So I just have a pan here. I'm just gonna dump everything right into the pan. So you can use a pot on your stove. I'm gonna use this. It's more of a skillet, but it's raised. It has a lot of room in it, so I'm gonna use that. So 3 cups of vegetable broth. All those spices. And the pumpkin. And then just carefully stir that up. So now I have this on my burner. I have my burner set on medium high. I'm just gonna bring that to a boil. I'm gonna then lower the heat to simmer or low and then cover it and let it simmer for about 5 minutes. And that's all there is to this one. All right, so this is just about up to a boil. And one thing I forgot to mention is with this one, make sure that you keep stirring it while it comes up to a boil because it's kind of like, it's like tomato soup. It can very easily stick at the bottom. It's not like it's a broth based. It's more of, you know, like a cream-based soup. So I am gonna go ahead and turn my heat down to low now because it's starting to come to a boil and I don't want it to get to a rumbling boil because it's gonna take a little bit for my burner to cool down. So now I'm just gonna cover that and I'm gonna let it simmer for about 5 minutes. And there is the pumpkin soup. So I put just a little bit of parsley on there since I didn't have any cilantro. And I have just a little bit of some light sour cream in there. So you can just kind of swirl that around. I just really think the sour cream just gives it a little bit more flavor. Like I said, if you are not one for pumpkin, you're probably not gonna like this one. For me though, I love pumpkin. So like I said, this makes 4 servings. They're about 1 cup servings each. So there is your bonus soup, the spiced pumpkin soup. So let me know in the comments which recipe you think you're most excited to try. As always, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll talk to you in my next video. I'm Kristi and I'm Planning Us Healthy.